Hi, welcome to a live stream about .NET MAUI. It was pretty long time ago I did a live stream now, and back then I did it on Twitch. But now I will do everything on YouTube. Maybe I've seen that I have published a lot of videos about .NET MAUI recently, and I will continue to do that. But I will also do some live streams from time to time, is the plan. And of course, you don't have to watch them live, but if you want to ask questions, you can watch them live. Otherwise, you can go and watch them whenever you have time to do it. So today we will start to build a .NET MAUI app from scratch. And the plan is to build a news app. So I have a data source that are in Azure Blob Storage. So we will fetch that data and we will show it on the screen. Okay, so let's open Visual Studio and start to build that. So here we have the new project dialog in Visual Studio for Mac. Visual Studio is my primary IDE. Maybe it's not perfect right now because there are still a preview for the .NET MAUI tooling, but it works pretty well. You can see some strange thing with the IntelliSense. Hot reload can struggle sometimes, but I would say it works pretty good. So I use it all the days. So let's create a new app. So here you can see we have the .NET MAUI app, we have Razor class library, but if you go here to multi-platform and app, you will be able to see all the app templates. And for .NET MAUI, we have three different templates. We have the .NET MAUI app that are a native app with native UI. And then we have .NET MAUI Blazor app that is a native app, but with web UI, a hybrid, where you use Blazor for building the app. And the UI will be rendered in a web view, but all the C# code will run natively, so you will have native access in everything you do. And then we have a class library. But today we will do a .NET MAUI app. So let's create that one, and target framework is of course .NET 6. That is the only option right now. So, and we can give it a new name. Let's say news app and create it. Now we will probably have to wait a bit because it will take some time to create the project. But today it was pretty fast. And I'm running this on a Mac M1. And compared to Visual Studio 2019, Visual Studio 2022 preview is so freaking fast. And it's really nice, even if there are some small bugs and small things that they need to improve. So it is so much better than 2019. So if you have Mac and an M1 or even M2, I recommend you to use Visual Studio for Mac preview because it's also running .NET 6. So it's really good IDE right now, I think, and it's really fast. So, okay. So we will create the app. We will use MVVM view model view model, a model view model. And my plan is to use my library tiny MVVM that I have optimized for .NET MAUI. There are a preview package only right now about that, but yeah, you can use it, and I will show you how to use it. So what you get in the default .NET MAUI template is that we have a main page with just some content, so that we'll remove. And then we have an app shell that will focus so much on today, but maybe in later streams. Otherwise, you can go and watch my videos about shell, because I have two of them. One is get started with shell and another one about customize flyout. And those videos are two of my most popular videos on YouTube. So if you want to know more about shell, I recommend you to take a look at them. Then we also have the MAUI program. That is like the start point of your MAUI app. And here is also where we set up dependency injection and register services and things like that. And we will do that during this stream. So let's start to build the app. So the first thing we need to do is to create the structure of the project. We need to set up views, view models, and maybe services for fetching data. So let's create a few folders. New folder, we create one for views, one for view models, and one for services. That, and then we can remove the main page because we don't want that one. We would replace it with the main view instead because we are using MVVM, and then I prefer to call the views / pages for views instead of pages. So we can do that. We can create a main view. .NET MAUI, and then we use the .NET MAUI content page SAML template. Main view. For the main view, we need a main view model. And I also, in every project, I create a base class for view model. Even if I use an MVVM library that already have a view model base, I create my own because I maybe want to have some shared code for my project between all the view models. So let's create a base view model. We can call it just view model. Make it abstract. Now we can go here and add that as a base class to the main view model. Okay, now we also can go and install Tiny MVVM. So we manage the NuGet packages, include pre-releases, and then we search for tiny mvvm.maui. Here it is. I need to fix the icon and also description. Package description was not a good description. So I have work to do. I can use pre9. Yeah, like that. And then we can go to this view model, and then we can add tiny view model. I think the name is now in this pre-release. I'll align the naming a bit. Before it was called view model base, but now it's tiny view model instead. And if we don't want to have those usings here, we can remove them. And we can go, for example, in MAUI program, and we can make them global. If you want, you can have a specific file for your global usings also, but you don't need that, and I think MAUI program.cs is a pretty good place to have them. We just add global there, and then we do that for tiny MVM too. And if we open the project file, we can see here that we have implicit usings enabled, and that means that all the MAUI namespaces are added implicitly. So you don't have to add them. They are already there. So that is pretty nice. And now you can see we have no errors here. And if we want to convert this to file scope namespace, we can also do that. I hope they will get that in the template soon, because I prefer to have those file scope namespaces. Yeah, they are pretty nice. Okay, now I think it's time to go and fetch the data. So we can create a new service, new class, and we want an interface there, an empty interface, news service. And then we need also some models. Create a new folder for that, models. Add new class, and we call it news item. Public record, public string title, because every news item needs a title. String body. And we want publish date maybe. And of course, we also want to have an image. have that as a string. We will hopefully get an image URL from the data source. Okay, so now we can go back to the service interface and create a method task, a list of news item, and we can just call it get. Now we need to create an implementation for this also. So we do that, new class, news service. And why I have an interface here is that will make it easier to write unit tests for the view models, for example, in a later stage. We will not focus on that right now. Okay, so here we have that one, and then we can go to MAUI program, and we can register it to the dependency injection container. Builder.services.add, that can be a singleton, an iNews service, news service. Okay, like that. And what we also can do now is that we can add this as a global using. And also, I think we should do that with view models and views namespaces. So when we are here, we can also register the view models and the view. So just main view model and also the view. The reason I want to register the view is that if we do that, it can be created with dependency injection via shell, and that means that we can go here to the view and we can inject the view model. Now we can do binding is view model. That also means that we can do constructor injection in the main view model, like news service, and we assign that to a field. So like this. And now with tiny MVM, we have some great methods to override. So let's do that. Override initialize. Here we can go and fetch the data. And this initialize method is called when binding context is set. And it's doing that on the main thread. And we also have other overrides if we want to. We have on appearing, disappearing, on first appear, on application resume, on application sleep, and also on parameter set if we do navigation. But if you want to know more details about TinyMVM, I also created a video about that. So you can go and watch that after this live stream. So, but right now we only need the initialize method. So we can do fetch of the data here. So var data is news service dot get. And of course we need the await keyword there. Okay. The only problem right now is that we don't have any data to fetch yet because the new service is empty. So let's go and do that instead. So we can here create an HTTP client and fetch data from a blob storage. I added a JSON file on blob storage that I can use for this demo. So we can take the URL for that and we can add that as a constant on string data URL like that. Okay, and then we can create an HTTP client. We can do that in the constructor and have that on class level and reuse that. So client is new HTTP client. Okay. And if we don't want to fetch data every time, we can use the caching mechanism in, maybe not should call it caching mechanism, but we can use what we have in HTTP client and blob storage, and we will get an E tag back. And that means that it's not necessary to fetch it every time. But first we can go and do a regular get. So var response equal to await client. Did you see that when I wrote await, it also added an async keyword to the method, and that is nice. You maybe had that in Visual Studio for Windows too, but we don't had that in Visual Studio for Mac before. So I think that is pretty nice. Small things that makes the experience better. Data URL. And I prefer to take the response object and back instead of having get async directly, because now we can access headers, success, status code, for example. So let's start by doing this. If response dot status code is equal to not modified, then we can do something, and that is what I talk about with the E tag. So else if response dot is success status code. I'm a little bit unsure if not modified is, no, it's not, because it's 200 to 199 that is success status code. So not modified is not in the success range. Okay, good to know. But here, if it's success, we can read content of the response. Await response dot content to read as string async. So now we have that as a string, but now we also want to convert it to a list of news item. So we can do that. Just need to double check that we gave it the right name in the model. Yes, it's correct based off the data. So now we can use the built-in JSON serializer in NET. So JSON serializer dot deserialize and list news item, and then we pass JSON variable. And if we want, we can add some options here too, JSON serializer options. If you have problem with the serializer, it can be because that it is case sensitive. So you can go and set property name case insensitive is true, and then it maybe will work better. Okay, result is a list of news item, and now we can return them. Okay, let's stay there for now, and we can go here and handle this not modified stuff later. And we can return a new list, an empty list, if we don't have any result right now, and then we can handle that better on a later stage. Okay, let's go back to the view model. Okay, now we want a property, so we can bind this content to the view. So for that, we will use, what's the name? Observable collection, of course. So it can be possible for the view to react to changes of the data. So we can do that. So when creating properties, I will now use source generators from Community Toolkit, Community Toolkit MVVM. So to use that, we need to do the class abstract. And now when we create a property, I prefer to have them after the constructor. I don't really need to create a property. I just create a field first, and then I add an attribute to the field. And the community toolkit.mvvm is installed together with the tiny mvvm, and that is new for the .NET MAUI version. If you used tiny mvvm before, you can see there are a lot of things that has changed for .NET MAUI. But that is because I think .NET MAUI is much more mature than Xamarin Forms, and stuff that you needed for Xamarin Forms is not needed anymore. So there will be breaking changes between Tiny MVVM for Xamarin Forms and for .NET MAUI, but it will also be much better, if you ask me. Yeah, and I created Tiny MVVM from the beginning because I don't want to write the same code in all my projects. Observable collection of use item. Maybe we can go and make those global too. Already have system global using. Okay, now get rid of those things, and we can also make this file scoped. Okay. Yep, and yeah, let's call it that items. We should use just lowercase there. And now when we go and set this attribute to observable property, we can see here now have a property. We have a field here, but it generates a property in a partial class. Did I make this abstract? It should not be abstract. It should be partial, of course. I don't know why I said abstract. It should be partial. So item is new observable collection. New. Oh, we can also do this. This is nice. New. Items, of course, new, and then we can just pass the data object in there. And this is the C# 10 stuff that we all can write new. You don't have to write new observable collection. And that's, of course, not unique for observable collection. You can use that for everything. We can also give this a default value, so we will have problem with the null reference exceptions. And here we also, if we want to, we can do a for each loop and add the items to the observable collection. That will work, but that will also trigger a render every time we add an item. And I think this data source have about 50 items, so that means it will trigger a re-rendering of the UI 50 times. And we, of course, don't want that. Oh, and here, when we are loading the data, we can also set is busy. And when we are done, is busy is false. And here we also should have try and catch. What happened now? I had the pointer on the wrong place. Okay, like that. And do handle exception. Because if we have an exception here and we don't handle it, it will crash the app. And we can have is busy after the or in final statement. But yeah, we can have it like this and do like this because I think that looks much more nicer. Okay, now we can go to the view and show the data for the users. So if we want to use TinyMVM, we should use the base class also for TinyMVM. So we need to import that namespace to the view. Namespace. And we need to do this even if we are using global using, because global usings are only working in the C# code, not in SAML. So mvvm and then tiny like this. And if you want to use compiled bindings that are good for performance, and also it makes it's possible to have intelligence about the data bindings, we also need to import the view model namespace. So news app, view models, and then we set x colon data type to, of course, we need to change that to something else. VM colon main view model, and that makes possible to have compiled bindings. So it will not work as it does with if you have done UWP development with Windows SAML where you use Xbind. You don't have that in .NET MAUI and not either in Xamarin Forms. So here we have a vertical stack layout. We don't want that, so we remove it and replace it with a grid. Because with the grid, it's possible to have multiple childs. So the first thing we want is an activity indicator that we can show when the data is loading, is running, and then we create a binding to the is it's busy. I don't know why IntelliSense don't find that one, but it is there. Is busy, yeah. And you want it in the middle of the view, vertical option center, horizontal options center. Okay. And when the data is loaded, we want a collection view. So we can show those news items that we are fetching. And it's visible. Binding is not busy. Okay, and then we need to bind item source. Binding, and it's called items. As you can see here, there are some problem with IntelliSense in Visual Studio for Mac, but hopefully they will fix that in an upcoming release. And with collection view, you need a data template for each item. I also have done a video about collection view that is called Collection View, All You Need to Know, according to me. So if you want to learn more about collection view, you can go and watch that video after this. So collection view.item template. Like this, and inside of that, we need a data template. And if we want the bindings even inside here to be compiled, we also need to set the data type here. So data type, and then we have the model. So then we need to add the model's namespace also. Models, okay. So models, news item, yeah, just like that. Okay, so how we want to show that data? Yeah, we can start with just adding the image and the title. So we add a vertical stack layout. And vertical stack layout is almost the same as stack layout with orientation vertical. We can still use that in .NET MAUI if we want to. But vertical stack layout is better for the performance. And we also have a horizontal stack layout, of course. And this is something I talk about in my video about .NET MAUI and layouts that you find on my channel. Okay, so here we add a label, text, binding, of course, to the text property. And here we can use one-time binding, because this will never update after that we have added item to the collection view. So for performance reasons, we can use a one-time binding, and that means it's just to read once from the model. The one-way binding, it will update the UI every time the view model changes, and with the two-way, it will update in both directions. For most controls, one-way is the default value of the binding mode, except for input controls like editor or entry that will have two-way as the default. So, but maybe we want to have the image above the label. So source is binding. Let's see, image, of course, we have that, and mode, time. Here we also can give it a height. We can try with 200. And it's not absolute pixel that used in .NET MAUI is .NET MAUI. It is like what, I don't really know the name. In Windows they call it effective pixels, and that means it's dependent on what resolution you have. So if you have a iPhone X and above with that high resolution, it will be 200 multiplied with 3. So let's say 600 actual pixels, but the value is 200 because that will be handled by the operating system. So we don't have to care about that, and that is a good thing, I think. Okay, maybe we are ready to see if this code works. Yeah, we try. So should we run it on iOS or should we run it on Mac? Yeah, it will probably go faster to start it on Mac. So we can do that right now. Then we can try it on both iOS and on Android later. Unfortunately, I'm not able to try it on Windows because I'm using Mac, and for Windows, you need to run it on a Windows machine. Okay, we have 3 build errors. So let's see what that is. And this is also a problem of the Visual Studio for Mac right now, that we have a lot of these IntelliSense errors that doesn't make sense because we don't have it. But what the problem is that we changed the base of the view to tiny view, but we didn't not do that in the code behind. So we need to remove content page there. We don't need to specify the base view on both places. It's enough to have it in the sample. Okay, now we see if it works better now. No, so we still have some problems. Let's see. Yeah, of course, we remove the main page, and then we need to change the main view here. So instead of local, we change the views and use app.views, and then we have main view here. Hopefully it will work. No, we still have errors. Cannot resolve type main. Of course, I need to change from local to views there also when I change the name up here. Still errors, closing tag. Oops. Dock that one again. Errors. Binding property text not find. That text is title. Okay, let's try again. Yeah, now it seems to work, because you often get the errors pretty fast when there are errors. And now it will build this for Mac. And it will often take longer time the first time you build it. And even if it takes some time the other times too, it will be faster than it is right now. So if you have any questions so far, you're very welcome to ask them to me. And if you have questions later, you can send them to me on Twitter, for example, or comment on this video, because the video will also be available after I'm not being live anymore. So we wait and we wait. Even if it's take pretty long time now with Mac, if we have chosen iOS, it would take even longer time, because then it first need to start up the simulator and build and fix everything. But now it seems like we are close. Yep, here it is. It doesn't look that good, but at least we have the data here. And this data is from the RSS feed of motorsport.com. So it's Formula 1 cars and Formula 1 news. Okay, can we make this look prettier? Maybe we want to have some padding and space between. So we can see if hot reload are working for Mac apps. So we can put that one here beside Visual Studio. And then we can see if we can update it. So we can add some padding here. Yeah, it works, but maybe we want some more, 20. Yeah. Okay, let's see, what can we do more? We can add, make this, change the font size here of the title. Oops. Then we have some predefined font size like header, title. This is a title. Okay, so add that. Oops, this was very big. I don't really know why it doesn't change the size of the stack layout. It should do that. But before we go and fix that, we can also add, now we should not add the body, but we should add the publish date here. That can be the size of small. Okay. Maybe we can see what happened if we restart the app. And now you will see it is much faster compared to the last time. Okay, and now you can see that it updated the height of the vertical stack layout too. So that is a hot reload problem. If we want, we can add a frame here, maybe, to make it look more pretty. That, and we can have ground color, maybe light gray. Let's see how that looks. Not that good, because we have dark mode, so we should not use dark gray. But then I can show you how you can do that. We can use app theme binding. Then we can have one value for dark, like say dark, if it work, or if we need to define them in a resource dictionary. Background color dark gray, light. No. Let's see what it says. Cannot convert. If we do like that, then we need, okay. Now we need to define them in a resource dictionary, and we can do that in app.saml if you want to, and we can also do it in the view if you want them to be just specific for the view. So content page or tiny view, but content page is a base class to tiny view, so we can do like this, resources. And then we add a resource, dictionary, and we can add a color here. Say it is a key we need. Dark background color. And what can that be? It can be like that. So, and dark should be 3 instead of 9. Change in light. And then we change here to static resource. Arc. I copy that instead. Dark background color. And light background color. And we should have one more there. It should be key and not name. Let's see if hot reload still works. It seems like it doesn't. Background color, we restart the app to see if hot reload is the problem. Okay, how did I spell this? Bark ground color. But let it be like that for now. And we should have static resource here also. That is the problem. Static resource. Like that. Right. Maybe it's just the intelligence that color, light, background. Let's fix the name. Light, background color, light, background color, dark, light. Or is it something else that is the problem here? Don't get one of those. And this uptheme binding is a very easy way to have both dark mode and light mode supported. If you want to have more different types of themes, you can do that with merged resource dictionaries also. But I will not talk more about that today. Maybe I will do a video about it. And I think Gerald Verschluss, hopefully I say the the last name right now, but I think he have done a video about .NET MAUI and theming, and he is doing a lot of great stuff on YouTube. So it's definitely a guy you should take a look at if you are interested in .NET MAUI videos. Okay, so now it looked like this, and we can also now add some padding to the page. Let's say 20, and it will be like this with more like cards. And we now both have padding on the vertical stack layout and on the frame, because frame has padding as default. But if you want to, we can set that to 0 and just have the padding on the vertical stack layout, just like this. And now if we want to have some space between those items, we can also add a margin at the end, like this 20 pixels. Okay, maybe not worked that good. You can see if it's about hot reload or if it's not supported as I thought it was. Now, there are some problem with margins, it seems like. So how to fix that? We can, of course, we can do it like that. We can wrap it in a content view. But the nesting views can be negative for the performance. Let's see, padding. Now we have it look better. Yeah, and the problem is now that it's not updating the vertical stack layout. I think that's the reason why we don't have any padding at the end of it. Yeah, now it looks better. Maybe we can try to make this image a bit nicer, or at least we can make it bigger and see if it will become nice or not. Let's line break those properties on image, and then we can set aspect to, we can have aspect fill. That means it will do like this. If it's not fit, it can zoom in the image, and we can also have aspect fit. Then it will be like before, because that is the default value. And I also think we have some other properties here. We have fill, but that will not keep the aspect, so that is not looking that good. And I also see that we have center here. I never used center. Let's see what happened then. Oh, that will not look good. Aspect fill is something that I often use for those cases. Okay, do you want to see how this look on iOS? Yeah, of course you want. So we can deploy this to an iOS 13 device just by changing target here. And if we go to the project file, we can see that here is the target frameworks that we have for our .NET MAUI app. So let's run this. And now we have to wait a bit. We need to wait for the simulator start, and we need to wait for the app package to be built. And this is also something that takes a longer time the first time it builds the app, but it's started simulator pretty fast now, I think. It was faster than I expected it to be. Yeah, but it takes a bit of time for the app to start. It's loading the data. Yeah, here we have light mode. Yeah, it did not look that good here, but yeah, that's because of what we specified. So maybe we want to add another page here. So if we tap one of those news items, we want to have it on a separate page. So yeah, let's do that. So the first thing we need then is, of course, the new page. So we create a new view, .NET MAUI, content page SAML. Then we can call it news item view. And we need a view model, new class, item view model, and we add view model as the base class. We make a partial, and before we forget it, we go here and add those news view and view model to the dependency injection container, news item view model, and new view, of course. Maybe we can structure it like this, that we have the view models together and the views together. Yeah, and then we go to the code behind. Here is also a bug in Visual Studio that they are not grouped together, views and the code behind, the XAML file and the code behind file. So here we inject the news item view model, and we set binding context view model. And now we also need to register this route to the shell. So we go here and add routing. But let's see, register route. Yep, register route, and we want to have a string for the route. I used to take the name of the view model, use item view model, and we map that to the view type of should be name of. But here we should have type of because it requires a string and a type. So type of news item view, like that. Okay, now we're done here. So now we go back to our main view model. Then we want to have a command property that we can use to tie up some tab events too. So we create a property with an attribute observable property, private async relay command from the community toolkit. Yeah, I think we want those two to be global too. We did that with one of them. No, we did not. Very nice to have them as global usings, I think. Yeah, okay. Let's go back to the main view model and news item view. No, it should just be a news item. And then we call that property open. What's the problem now? On this declaration, it's only valid on, yeah, of course, it should not be observable object. It should be observable property. Okay. Then we create a method for that command that should be run when it tap it. Private void. No, it should be async talks because it is an async relay command. Open view, which cannot name it open now because this will generate a property with the name open, and then we will have a conflict. And then we'll have a news item into it like that. And in the constructor, we can now do items, open a new async relay command, and then okay, can't we just add okay, now we can do a wait navigation. Navigation here is from Tiny MVVM. It is just a wrapper around the shell navigation. So, but it's pretty nice to have those view models clean from .NET MAUI references if you, of some reason, want to use them in another UI framework, you can do that. And the route we created was the name of the view model, name of use item view model. And then we pass the item object. And TinyMVM also helps a little bit with the passing data between view models. So it will be enough there, and then we can go back to the view. And then we want to tie up a tapped gesture to either the frame or the content view, or in this case, it will also be possible to have it on the vertical stack layout. But we can add it to the content view on the highest level. So content view dot gesture recognizers. Now we have a tab gesture recognizer. Here we can have a command and command parameter. And now we are on a different level compared to the view model. We are on a news item in the binding hierarchy here. As you can see, we have X data type news item. So we need to set another source of the binding so we can use the collection view. Here, give that a name. News items, for example, and then we do binding source x colon reference. Again, x colon reference, and then use items like that. Then path, and we have binding context dot open like that. And the command parameter should just be the whole new item object. So command parameter binding like that. So that should be enough. So now we can go here to the news item view model, and then we can handle that. So what we need to do here is we should override parameter set instead of initialize, because in the initialize phase, we don't have the parameter set. It will be set later. And when it's set, it will run this method. Wait, should always have those base classes left, I think, because there are maybe some logic happen there that are not in TinyMVM, but you maybe add that to your own base view models, or maybe it will be added later in TinyMVM. I don't know. Probably not. So here we can also have a property, observable property. And as you can see now, I don't have to add any references because I already have a global using. So we don't need that system using either, because that's also in the global. And we can convert the file scope namespace to make it nicer. Observable property, yeah, private news item. No, it should not be a property, it should be a field. That, and then we can take item. It's equal to navigation parameter, and this will be set if it only have one parameter set. We can also do it like a query string in here, and then if we do that, it will use this query parameters dictionary instead. But we should use navigation parameter as item. Okay, that should be enough here. So we can go to the view and prepare that one a bit, but first we remove this content page stuff. We don't forget it this time too. So news item view, we should have tiny view here too, as we have in the main view, so we can copy those namespace imports, or usings if you want to call them that. So fix that. VVM colon tiny view. Fix that one. Okay, I don't really know what the problem is, but maybe we can close the debugger and it will remove some of those things. We need to set the data type to have the bindings compiled. Let's see, use item model. And here we also can have another title. So we can bind to item dot title. If that maybe will not look good with a long title, we are able to do that. Maybe we should change this title to something nicer than main view. F1 news. Back here. So what do we want here? We want to have the image, we want to have the title, we want to have the body. Yeah, so we can keep the vertical stack layout and we can also keep the label, but we can change some data to it. We can add binding item dot body. Let's see if there are some font size. Yeah, we can use body, of course, for that. That sounds good. We copy the label, we add a binding to published. We use small on the published date before, and we can use that now. And in the beginning, we can have the image. Of course, binding item dot image. Height, how much did we have on the main view? We have 200, so we can go with 300 here instead. That, and we set aspect to aspect fill here as well, because that will mostly look okay. Let's see if this works. We have done a lot of steps now without trying to run it, so I hope it works. Otherwise, we'll start to debug it. At least no build errors, it seems like. Okay, here we have the list. Let's see if we can select this first one. For some reason we can't. So we go here and add an exception breakpoint, so it will catch all exceptions for us. Yeah, okay. Navigation has not been initialized. I know why. When we use tiny MVM, we need to go and do like this. Dot use tiny MVM. Okay, now it will hopefully work better. Yeah, it will work better, but hopefully it will work too, so we don't have any other problems with our code, with my code, because it's me writing it. Yeah, it works, but it would be nice to have some spacing between the items in the vertical stack layout, so we can go and add that. So we go to this view and we add spacing, and spacing is just between, it's not around the icons. So let's say 20, and maybe we want to have some paddings here, but not here. So then we can wrap it in another vertical stack layout. Like this. And then we say padding, And now if we want to, we can remove the spacing here and just have padding here. Like that. But we still need to have the spacing here because we want to have some spacing between the body text and sometimes this happens with the hot reload. There are exceptions that crashes the app, but hopefully that will be improved in future releases of Visual Studio. Yeah, let's see where we are. Here we are. We still need to have some spacing between the body and publish date. So what should we have there? Maybe let's take 20 there too. Okay, let's run this again. Yeah. And now we can see we have the title F1 News there. And we have this long title up here. So that maybe look that good. So maybe we should move it down here instead. Title. Have font size title. Maybe a bit big so we can use subtitle here instead. Yeah, that looks good. Yep, and the problem right now is that we are not able to scroll this. So we need to add a scroll view around the page. It worked on the main view because collection view has a built-in scroll view. So we don't have to think about that when we have a collection view. Yeah. Okay, now we can scroll and read all of the content. So we have a few things left to do here. For example, as you can see here, we have HTML inside here and we have the links here, but that is something that we can work on in upcoming streams. And in upcoming streams, I will also add some other structure on the app. We can add some tab bars, maybe a flyout. But we have streamed for over an hour now, and I think it's time to go back to work. But I think it was fun to do this stream. Hopefully you liked it. If you do, you're welcome to subscribe to my channel if you don't already do that. Like this video and yeah, write a comment. That would be nice. So hopefully we see you next time and take a look at my .NET MAUI videos. And there will be more of them. I released at least one every week is the goal. So yeah, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye-bye.